Good morning, boys and girls. Today I thought I'd start a little bit differently because there's been a number of questions, and I thought I would do my best with some of them here in the beginning. um, I think first I should do an overview of what we're doing here, and what we're doing here is primarily addressing people who are on their way to just waking up or people who have already woken up to some extent. Most of mankind is sleepwalking. They are effectively automatons. They don't wonder about where they come from or what they are or what the meaning or purpose of life. To them, apparently, it seems, just given that they're here and they're going to do their work and take care of their families and then die like their grandparents and their grandparents before them. And not everyone has the same opportunities or the same situations, the same benevolent circumstances that others do in the context of finding truth or finding the reality of what we're doing here. But all rivers flow to the sea eventually. And the question is, how prepared for death is one, and how much is one inspired or moved to live their own life, answering their own questions for themselves, and for some, obtaining liberation from the dullness of what occupies many human lives, what I think Thoreau called the lives of quiet desperation that most men and many women live. Now, having said that, this channel is not for everyone. There are many, many different paths to the goal of understanding why one's here, and I don't want to diminish any of them by saying that we're focusing on something a little more specialized here. There's the Christian path of service, or the Muslim path of service. There's the Hindu paths Hindu used generically, of bhakti worship. There's all kinds of other religions that do all kinds of different things for folks and help organize their societies, etc. That is not so much what this channel is about. As a matter of fact, this channel is not about religion. It's about something a little bit more rarefied and a little less prepackaged, thereby increasing the responsibilities on anyone who's so inclined or inspired by some of the works that I present here. But as much as all rivers do lead to the sea, there is the possibility of enlightenment for a substantial percentage of the population if they were so inclined and were willing to do what's necessary to clear away the dross, the DROSS, all the accumulated conditioning that their mind has acquired in their time on Earth. And so this channel is focused to those who are drawn to an endeavor that's a little bit more demanding. And it absolutely requires that one think for themselves. There's no doctrine here that's to be imparted. There's no opinion that we're trying to get you to have. There's nothing like that. We're here simply as an aid to those who want to wake up or wake up further, and we will use whatever means seem indicated in 2024, given the general state of the populations around the world. I mean, because this channel does reach globally, which is very nice. Let's see, what else should I say about that? So it does require some effort, and it certainly requires some independent thinking. And so it's not always easy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so it's aimed towards people who have at least average intelligence and above, and those who are independent thinkers and independent workers. You must have your own motivation and your own energy. And if you don't have the information base, let me know and we can provide that for you. One of the books that comes to mind immediately, just off the top of my head, is a book by Chagdud Tulku called Gates to Buddhist Practice. Now, this is not a Buddhist channel, and we're not trying to make Buddhists out of people. But one of the sutras that turns out to be the most useful in terms of gradual awakening is something that is called Buddhist, but it was written by proto-Sufis in the first and second centuries. It doesn't really need to be updated. We haven't come much further philosophically from Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Heraclitus, and philosophers of that epoch. Philosophy does not move alongside, nor science move alongside understanding. They seem to be on somewhat different tracks, and truth has always been accessible to women and men if they were so inclined. Now, some religions are less friendly towards mystical enterprises, and science has been very unfriendly at many times, but I think we're at a very unique time in history where science has hit a wall with regard to the ontology or the basic fundamentals of our universe, and they're willing to acknowledge that. And so some science gets thrown in for those that enjoy that. So I hope that's useful, but nothing comes for free except for life itself. I shouldn't say that. There's many things that come for free. The beauty of this marvelous world, for one thing. But in this endeavor, it does take some effort. I mean, that's just the way this channel is. Now, someone asked, why is it that okay, so this is separate. I'm going to change the subject now. Someone said, well, why is it that we perceive similar things as humans? I mean, why would consciousness not have a different set of perceptions for every, I don't know exactly what's underlying the question, but I think that the answer that the person is looking for, the level at which this kind woman is asking for, at the level at which she's asking, I think we need to notice that we all have the same transducers, roughly. The brain, the eyes, the ears, the sense, and sound, etc. But I think if you really think about it, we don't perceive the same things. If you think about a blind person, for example, or a deaf person, they certainly don't perceive the same things. And then if you think of yourself as a child, when I was a child, things looked very different to me than they do now. The trees that I saw as a child are totally different trees than what I see now. Some people, when they see a chicken, they see food. Other people see an exotic bird. So I don't think it's entirely true that we all perceive the same thing. But nonetheless, there does seem to, I'm not trying to deny that there are invariants or appear to be invariants that go along with being a human on this planet. I mean, we have the sky, we have the color green, but we don't know that we perceive the same color. We just aren't given that. So, along with this human body, there appear to be some invariants in this experience that are embedded in some manner in mind itself. And we can go into more detail in that at another time, but I hope that helps. Meanwhile, to sum all of this up, the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Ornament Sutra, is not the only way, but it is a way, and the one that's most likely to give you the comprehensive breadth of mind in order to grok what comes later. And I hope that helps. All right. Thank you for the listening, and here we go. What have you learned?
I have a question on just the thing
Good.
that you said. So I also have contemplated before why some people live the life they do and why others live differently. I thought of like two possibilities. One is that it's like an any animal colony, like an ant colony or like any animal colony.
Okay.
Different things have different roles and they perform that. the collective wisdom or the collective action of the group makes them evolve and go further. So
Excellent.
even though so even though some people might look that they're living like more monotonous life or like not that productive, but maybe either they are on a different journey compared to other people, or maybe it's just a collective thing that is evolving and it just
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautiful. That's very, very nice. Thank you. Very, very nice. And then even these collectives may be interacting at a different level. So we have an individual mind, but then we have a collective mind. Let's say the group of, say, let's say Muslims, just for the sake of it. And then they interact with other groups, right? And that interaction creates something brand new, right? Like Buddhists coming to this country created something very, would be difficult for Buddhists in, say, Tibet to recognize as Buddhism, but it's Buddhism. And perhaps the whole thing is moving us forward, right? But if history's a judge, some of it's moving us forward, some of it's moving us backwards, some of it's erasing what we've done before, and some is building on it. But that's a beautiful observation. Thank you. And the whole notion of minds is something that needs to be revised, because we have, if a mind is described as something that is able to solve a problem in a unique way, then we have minds at the level of, very, very simple organisms. And even parts of the body, our human body has individual problem solving units. And so we're going to have to broaden our definition of mind. And again, I think I hate to keep harping on it, but in this case, the first millennium Sufi Buddhists, or whatever you want to call them, seekers of truth or teachers of truth, found a way to get people to broaden their minds sufficiently to start to grok that multiplicity of minds everywhere. So good point. Thank you. Very nice.
so it's like one possibility appears to be that collective is evolving. Because of that, one possibility seems to be that the collective is evolving, and nature, the way nature works, it just like sacrificing some for the benefit of others. It's like a principle that is part of nature itself. Maybe that was the one thing I thought. The other thing was
Very
this.
good. I mean, it appears to be that way, right? What you just said. It appears to
Yeah,
be that way. I agree.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and the other, but then still, it doesn't feel good that some people are getting sacrificed for the collective. So mind goes into looking for other reasons why some people are
Well,
getting the
but see,
short end of the
people
stick.
aren't okay, and this is where we get to the advanced, okay, the more advanced. It looks like people are being sacrificed, but what is really being sacrificed? Consciousness does not occur at the level of people. Mental activity may appear to occur at that level. I need to go to the store to get myself something to eat. That mental activity may appear to at that level, but consciousness itself does not budge and is not neither created nor destroyed. It's akin to a dream. In a dream, it can appear, you could dream that a dog has learned to walk on 2 feet and go to the barbershop and get his hair trimmed, right?
Mhm.
But that's just a dream dog.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can collectively dream a dream of progress, or a dream of destruction, or a dream of something in between. And we probably will get to experience all of those in a human lifetime, right? Or the lifetime of a civilization.
Mhm.
But I agree with you. If we look at the way of the Tao, it does include birth, growth, development, formation, flowering, and then eventual old age, sickness, and death, falling apart
Mhm.
and decay.
Mhm.
So why does it feel uncomfortable?
It feels uncomfortable because it feels unfair that some people are in a better position than the other without any fault of their own.
In
But
what
that
time scale?
problem,
In what time scale are they in better position?
like in their lifetime, so like for 80, 90 years, however the amount of time
Who's
they
in a
might.
better position? the humble people that are close to the earth, or the rich people who are living these lives up in, so let's say they're famous and rich and all this stuff, who's in a better position?
I think it's not related to like monetary stuff. It's just like it's like even like people who are rich can be sick or like can have like suffering, and even
Right.
people who are poor, but they have their everything like their health is fine, and then they are able to like just like live a pleasant life supported by family. So it's not related to the monetary stuff, but their own experience, uh, which seems that some people are have a better thing going on than the
A
others,
better life?
a better life. Yeah.
Who has a better life, the humble or the proud?
I have seen both
Exactly,
suffering and
exactly,
both.
yeah. There are many traditions that would say that it's best to keep close to the ground, right? Or philosophical opinions that say better to stay close to the ground, and then you don't get tangled up in all the ways of the world, because there's just trouble, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And we know that's certainly true for famous people. We don't know so much about rich people, but just think it's important that what constitutes a good let's just keep it in the context of awakening. What constitutes a good opportunity or a lifetime that of which this can be is a realistic goal has nothing to do with the external circumstances, right?
mhm,
It
mhm,
literally has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the inner soul, or the inner uh, inclinations.
mhm,
Now, it is true that for this particular channel and the things that I'm presenting here, it's more oriented towards people that are, at least average intelligence or above, right? Not because we want to exclude anybody, but simply because it's slightly different material.
mhm.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Good. I feel understood.
Mhm. Cool.
That's a nice feeling.
Uh, yeah, and I think whatever you said definitely aligns with my experience that I have seen in the world so far. So I was totally able to relate to that.
Good.
Cool. The next question I have is, so I want to get back to the this like fixation or obsession uh, that that like I have and I've seen other people also have it. And for me, I think it seems it stems from being too attached. So if I am too attached to something, then that leads to wanting to not make mistakes and wanting to do things perfectly. And with that, the fixation or the obsession comes in.
Well, obsession is an enemy of the quest for truth. So let's look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a very, very common problem, as is the opposite, the complete lackadaisical, lazy, whatever comes, it will come, and I just don't need to do anything. I can just sit on my butt and click through YouTube's. That's not going to work either. So the middle way, as the Buddhists say, is
Mm-hmm.
is the way to go, in my opinion. But let's hear more.
Yeah,
Fixation
so
on what?
so like
Without getting too
I
personal.
think yeah, so like I used to think that maybe my brain has a tendency to be obsessive, but what I have realized like recently is I'm able to let go and detached in certain situation, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to do that in other situations. And it's coming mainly from the attachment that I have. So like for example, if I'm attached to like being healthy or like attached to living longer, then anything that triggers that goes against it creates this obsession to fix things. And like the lack of patience also kicks in. But if there's something that I'm not too attached, so like let's say that so like let's say something goes wrong at work, and but I'm okay with that. So it doesn't create any obsession, any fixation. I give the due attention that is needed, and then I move on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the attachment that is causing the issue, at least it seems that for me. And I try to detach, but the only way I have seen that works is just to calm the mind and let the things settle. But but it doesn't. It feels like it's not making a long-term progress. Like I can apply this technique, and it works in the moment and for time, but then the obsession is not fully going away.
Have you tried just being in the present always? No matter what the situation, bring yourself, your consciousness, your attention to the present. And then see what happens to the long-term preoccupations, or the preoccupation with being perfect for a lifetime, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
See, all our suffering, our suffering is caused by our minds. And our minds obsess about the past or obsess about the future. And both of those are completely, we could just say they don't exist. Actually, that'd be the most accurate thing to say. And so to get obsessed about something that doesn't exist is not a good way to live a life free of suffering, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the notion of free of suffering, I know that sounds outrageous, and I thought it was outrageous to me. It's like the idea of living without hope or fear. But those are, when you live absolutely in the present, and you realize what you are, and you've ceased identifying with the limited body and the constricted little world of the sense objects that you can see, and instead you just ease back into what you are, the formless, timeless awareness outside of time and outside of form, then you can relax. And then probably better for your body also, but the body will decay just like anything will.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to come to peace with that. You got to get to peace with that. And so typically people want things to be different than what they are. And that's the kiss of death for peace of mind.
I think I have seen that if I continue being present all the time, then slowly and slowly, uh, the frequency of thoughts go down of the same thing, and then there's a detachment that comes in. But
Yes.
I think but I think that's coming in for me because I'm consciously making a decision to stay present, and with that, there's a knowledge that comes in which says that I have actually decided to detach. So with that, mind relaxes and gives up
Okay,
on that.
so do you know how to ride a bicycle?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you first rode a bicycle, you said, "Okay, I have to sit on the seat, and I have to pedal, and I have to push off, and I have to keep my balance," right? And then you were thinking, "Well, how do I steer, and how do I pedal, and how do I do this and that," right? So you're very conscious of it. Later, it all becomes automatic. You don't even think about it. You get on a bicycle and drive to the post office and not even notice that you're on the bicycle because it's all automatic, right? And part of this work and part of this sutra, or any sutra for that matter, is to entrain your mind in these principles such that that's the world you live in now.
Hmm.
And that's just a much better world. It's a world of love and peace and
Hmm.
lack of anxiety. There's no fear or desire, or there's nothing to hope for, there's nothing to lose
Hmm.
when you abide in the ocean of love that is consciousness, right? Again, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it until it becomes
I think
what you are, who you are.
I think like the
I did mention kindness. I left something out in the beginning. Kindness is a religion too, and it's the one that the Dalai Lama prescribes for the planet. And I think that's a good idea because that way, kindness doesn't require a dogma, doesn't require a point of view, doesn't require philosophy, doesn't require anything, right? And so I left that out. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. But of course, okay, keep going. Good.
yeah, I think I'm able to do that, like relax the mind and let things settle. The only counter thought that comes up is what if this like act of letting go and not caring will make me make mistakes, or like make me prone to mistakes because now I'm just like not caring about it. So I'll give an example.
Okay, good.
So like this, so like recently when I was having these like physical like symptoms,
Uh
like
huh.
for the reflux stuff, So I was thinking, okay, I will go to doctor and get tested and everything. But since they have improved a lot and almost like gone away now, so now I feel like, oh, I don't need to get tested again, because that feels normal to me. Like I don't need to get tested anymore because now things are resolved. But then there's a fear, like thought comes up. What if like you should still get tested? And so even though logically it seems to me that there's nothing to do, but the thought comes up that you are just letting go and being like
Are you
ignorant
worried
of.
that you're going to get cancer or something?
Yeah,
What good is
something
a
like
test
that.
going to
Yes,
do?
like they will maybe diagnose it and then maybe
The,
something
the
can be
the
done.
test is the symptoms. I mean, I'm speaking a little bit as a doctor here off the cuff. I'm not practicing here online, folks. But
Mhm.
the indication that something is amiss, that your acidity is too high, is the symptom of pain in your stomach. And then you relieve it with some soda water, some bicarbonate of water, Topo Chico or just something alkaline.
Mhm.
And I don't know
Mhm.
what test you would get, but I think that sometimes people want the certainty. What you're looking for is the
Mhm.
certainty that everything's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's no certainty on this planet. There's no certainty, I'm afraid. And so, best to get used to that notion. I mean, I've lived a full life, and let me tell you, I never would have predicted some of the things that have occurred. I mean, whew, just completely outrageous.
Mhm.
And I remember my
Mhm.
grandmother complained of the same thing. And that was quite a while ago. So this world just keeps chugging along. And if you're going to try and hold on to a certainty, good luck. The world
Yeah,
will
it's
probably throw
really
you down. Probably throw
it's
you down. Good.
yeah, it's yeah. And I think the one thing that has worked for me in the past for sure, so like I used to be obsessed about the blood pressure stuff long time ago. But then once I accepted the idea of like it's okay to die to have a better life, then I was able to let go of that.
And that's very
So
important to go okay with death, because you never know when it's coming, but you know it's coming, right?
mhm,
But what dies? Not you, not really,
mhm,
and
mhm,
not at all. And this is the other rationale for this channel, is that people need to know what they are, hopefully before they die, so they can die in peace. You know,
mhm. Yeah.
and I know quite a few older people listen to this, and I'm here for that. Because old age is not for sissies. It's not. And so for the old
Mhm.
folks out there, salutations. How you doing, guys? It's quite a trip, huh? This old age stuff. Okay. All right. But, I address the younger people because no older people have gotten on yet. And by the way, people are welcome to send in questions. It's much better to do on X than it is on YouTube, because on YouTube, I just use a phone. I don't use a computer anymore. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's very hard to get to the comments and they get lost on a YouTube. So if anybody wants
Mhm.
to communicate with me, X is probably the best way in DMs if you want to stay private.
Mhm.
I know there's something else I'm supposed to be talking about, but I can't remember, so let's keep going.
Mhm. Yeah, I have another question related to surrendering and giving up, being present. So all three, like in effect, seem pretty similar to me.
Okay,
Whether
what are the
I
three? Surrender.
surrender, being present, like absolutely present, and giving up.
Okay, so giving up to me implies that there's something that's given up.
Hmm.
What are you giving up?
So like anything that I fixate on, I there comes a point when I give up. Like giving up is like, oh, I'm okay with whatever happens, and then after that, a new kind of
So
phase
the
kicks
ego
in.
gives up.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay, good. So,
Yeah.
so now there are in some traditions, there's a literal ritual in which you give up. Actually, in Buddhism too, where you give up those things, you offer them in the service of enlightenment, or you offer it
Hmm.
to God as your surrender, or an emblem of your surrender to love or to truth or to God or whatever you want to call it, right? And so you can ritualize that as well, and why not for a while? And just say, I give up obsessing on this in the name of freedom, in the name of liberation, in the name of love of God, or love of truth, or love of beauty, or whatever whatever you want to put there. And that works. And you'll be amazed at your mind is much more malleable than you believe, and it's much more powerful than you believe. And so one of the major things I have to teach here, folks, is that you can use your mind to create all kinds of mechanisms of your own to liberate yourself. I did one, and I've mentioned this before, but where basically I said, every time I take a breath, that represents 100 or 1,000 Om Mani Padme Hum mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum mantras. I got this idea from the Tibetans, right? Because they have their prayer flags, and every time that flag flaps, that's another mantra. The mind can do that. I mean, it violates all our principles of, a dollar's made of 100 cents, and 50 cents is half a dollar, and 25 cents is a quarter dollar, all that. It's all numerosity. But you can skip the numerosity and just do whatever you want with your mind. And as you do this, you start to recognize the true power of your mind, the creative power, this wonderful brain we've been given, right? And then you can create your own practices and your own rituals and that's the way it works, frankly. You have to take your own initiative. And that's what I'm trying to get people to do, is to say, hey, look, it's perfectly fine. You could make up a ritual where every time I walk past a clock, I'm going to say the Lord's Prayer in my heart or something. Anything you want. There was another one I did where when I'd see a bird, I would immediately go through the feathers, through the skin, through the bone, to the heart, and I'd see the beating heart of the bird. And so I'd walk around, and there'd be these beautiful beating hearts everywhere, emblems of love and peace, And everyone can do this, and everyone should do this. Now, when you were a kid, you did do this, because you were much freer in your mind. Remember, you used to invent all kinds of things. You could invent a whole game with one stick. That's what we have to recapture, that creative imagination and that devotion and dedication to the task. And to do that, you must begin to realize our minds have been shut down by our culture. We've been crammed into an industrial or an agricultural role. And that's like it, maybe you can watch a movie at night, or you can, read a book on the weekend, but that's it. And and those are all, in a very, very narrow range. We got to break out of that, break free in the mundane way. Do your own thinking, do your own creativity, do your own puja, your own rituals, your own practices, your own ways of showing devotion. And so surrender is perfectly fine, right? I mean, it's great. And being present too. But the giving up, okay, if you're going to give something up, you might as well give it to something. I mean, that's one idea, right? There's a million different things you can do, and everyone who's on this road should do. I was, part of my life, I was a Catholic, and we'd drive past the cemetery, and my grandmother would make the sign of the cross. Every time we drove past the cemetery, and I was a kid, right? I go, wow, that's wild. Think about that. And so that's just a reminder of the dead, and a reminder of your own death, and a reminder of life. I mean, you're in the car, and you're alive, and they're dead in the ground, right? And little things like that, they add up. Now, I'm not prescribing any one of them, not just like I wouldn't prescribe a particular religion or a particular branch of science or anything like that. What I am saying is that it's our responsibility as individual humans. Look at what we've been given, good God. And we let this go to waste in our culture. We mistreat the education of our kids, and then we mistreat ourselves. And so I'll stop preaching, but man, it's heartbreaking sometimes because there's so much out there. So good. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does feel like surrendering feels better than giving up. Because with surrendering, there's a higher purpose to which I'm dedicating stuff.
Right. But you don't have to give up giving up. Just give up to a higher I'm giving this up in the name of a higher purpose. It's, in old religions, they were sacrificing everything all over the place. They would sacrifice goats and virgins and, flowers and food. And I mean,
Mhm.
I was shocked by the fact that Tibetans in the mountains, they'd offer, ghee and food, good food, roasted chickens and things in the
Mhm.
puja. I thought that's kind of
Mhm.
wild. So that's a natural impulse in humans, I believe, or it's a human universal.
Mhm.
So, but you don't have to sacrifice blood. You can sacrifice something else, like an obsession or a fixation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good.
And surrendering also, I think, forces me to be sincere, because if I'm surrendering and I'm not sincere, then that just
Very, very good. Yes, the sincerity is absolutely key. And yeah, so anything that will bring you back to that. So being present. And if you're present and you're not sincere, that doesn't work either, really. Right? Now you can decide how deep you want to go into it at any given time. But without sincerity, none of this works. None of this works any more than going through rituals in a thoughtless or routine manner is not going to do a thing.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Uh, oh yeah, this is the other thing. I think I sent you a message on X about this last week, which
Okay.
is this new age idea of like manifesting things with thoughts. So this was like one of the things someone said to me in the past, that if you're gonna think about like negatively, then it will manifest. Like if you think about worried about having cancer, then you will have cancer because you are thinking about it. And I was like, it doesn't make sense. But then,
No, that doesn't make sense, and much harm has been done to people with cancer by people who it's a it's a it's an obvious form of judgment too, where they say, well, they must have deserved the cancer or something like that, or they weren't pure and they're manifesting or whatever. It's just oftentimes people who are signal their virtue are actually signaling their primitiveness. And we see this in the New Age, or in quasi-religious people as much as anywhere else. And so that's just flat out wrong. And you really wonder about somebody who thinks that way about somebody else. Now, I've known many people that have gotten cancer, and it's not helpful. Now, but there's something though that is useful, and that is if you're always stressed about being stressed, you can increase your stress, because that's a psychological has big psychological elements. Is what I'm saying. And so obviously, if you're always angry or you're always upset, that's not good for your health.
mhm,
But cancer, that's just going too far.
mhm. Yeah.
Cancer has a separate
Even,
mind. The best person, again, Michael Levin has some wonderful insights on this, what cancer is and a new way to approach it. It's not that your body has rebelled against you, it's that there's some cells that have lost the instruction manual, and they're just going wild, and they have their own mind and they have their own agenda, right? And it's like a different foreign mind within you.
mhm.
And it offers a lot of hope in terms of ways to approach this. I mean, I won't go into the details here, but no, don't buy into that stuff.
Yeah. And even like there are so many like influencers on social media these days who say that if you do this or think like this, then it will manifest, you will have a good life, things like that. And that also is
Well, if they
spreading.
say that you're going to manifest with thoughts, right there, that's wrong. It's not thought that manifests anything. Thought is not what does it.
Mm.
So just use common sense, I think. I
Yeah.
don't want to sit here and just pass judgment on them. Now, I mean, there's some truth that if you say, well, I'm going to be successful in this life, or I'm going to get enlightened, and I'm going to do it, this is what I'm going to do, and then you set out to do that, well, that's manifesting with your thoughts, right? I'm going to read the Avatamsaka. That means I'm going to sit down 10 or 20 minutes a day, every day, and immerse myself in this. And if you do that and get it done, that's okay. And if that's what they
Mhm.
mean by manifesting with thought, then that makes sense. But if they're talking about some, I've seen a lot of people go broke with that crazy stuff. I had a secretary once who thought she was going to manifest incredible wealth for herself, and she did it during the real estate bubble or whatever. So everybody was giving mortgages out, and so she like bought 3 or 4 properties that she couldn't possibly afford, and she's still paying for that. I presume still paying for that mistake of wishful thinking. So we mustn't have wishful thinking either. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I've seen is with any of these like new trend that come in, usually one
They aren't new.
person is
They aren't new. They're as old as man. It's just like the apocalypse. They've been predicting Christians have been predicting the apocalypse since the 2nd century. Right? This is perennial. I mean, so there's nothing new about this. But keep going.
yeah, it's like someone keeps predicting having a storm every day, then one day it's going to happen, and then
Right.
they will claim it as success, and then yeah, I think that's pretty much what's going on in all these things.
Yeah. The other thing is that the root of that oftentimes is envy, which is a great tragedy for humans. I can't think of a worse tragedy for humans than envy.
Envy, as in like because people think others are successful, so they want to get there too.
Well,
Is
I think we
that
should differentiate between jealousy and envy. Okay, and how you use these words, it changes from generation to generation. It seems, every 40 years it seems to switch. But in envy, you really want to destroy the other person who has what you don't have. So it's a very destructive internal emotion. And you pity the poor people who have it. Jealousy is like you see a nice car and you go, wow, I wish I could afford a car like that. And then you get to work so you could afford it or something. It's much more benign than envy. In envy, you actually want to hurt people. And we see a lot of that today, where we envy the rich. That's a big mistake. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Let the rich have what they have. That's just let them do their own. Let them torture themselves to death. And it is torture to death. It's not pleasant. It's very hard to survive.
isn't envy more of a trait for someone who is not optimistic? Like they don't feel that they can get it, so they feel envious. But otherwise, it would be jealousy.
No, you can have envy where you can have envy among equals. You can have envy is a disease of the mind, and it's independent of the reality altogether, I'd say. I'd reserve that word envy for that. You could envy, I've known people that envied other for being happy or being lucky, and they wanted to destroy that other person. It's a very horrible emotion, and when you see it, run the other way. It's like lack of humor. If you see somebody with no sense of humor, turn around and poof, go the other way. These are signs of severe psychopathology. And I'm an ex-shrink. I'm telling you right now, watch out for those two.
Mm-hmm.
True envy or lack of a sense of humor, those are both big warning flags.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sir?
Yeah.
The other thing I think I should probably do on this channel is that I have all this oral training that I received, as a young man and throughout my life. And some of the stuff I need to pass on because it's not in any books anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the psychiatric stuff, too.
I think that would be really helpful because I think some people are kind of closed towards getting like spiritual religious stuff, but they are open to getting like more like psychiatry or like medical stuff.
Well,
So,
I'm not okay. I wasn't thinking so much of patients, but therapists. They need more information.
okay.
What someone needs that's a totally different thing. In this channel, we presume a basic mental health, a basic capacity to live one's life responsibly, right? This is not a substitute. enlightenment is not a substitute for living a mature, responsible adult life. And some people think it is, and they wander around the earth or around America looking for gurus, right? And they say, well, I'm getting enlightened because that's a smart thing to do. But really what they're doing is they're avoiding adult responsibilities. And that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
We're not for that here.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. My next question is Avatamsaka Sutra.
Okay, good.
This is
Now, let me say a few things about the Avatamsaka Sutra before we go there, because people have asked about it. They said it's hard for them to visualize. Let's try an experiment. I'm trying to think of something that common. Okay. Let's visualize. I want you to visualize, and I'm going to do the same thing. A chalkboard eraser. Close your eyes and visualize a chalkboard eraser.
mm-hmm.
Do you see anything there?
Yeah.
Do you see it with your eyes? Because I don't.
Not with my eye, because eyes are closed.
Okay. Let's try something else. Visualize a cactus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can get the sense of a cactus, and I can say that, there's a cactus. I can imagine an eraser on a cactus, but it's not like I'm seeing anything. To do that requires a much more, it's a different thing. So what I'm trying to point out is that people are worried because they aren't visualizing everything in the flower ornament. It's not like that. You first become accustomed to these things, right? The idea of a fragrant lake, or the idea of a crystalline sky, or a tree that's full of gems. And it's not like you visualize them and you see them like you would in certain exercises. It's more like you just become comfortable with the idea of it. And then as you go along, it's kind of magical, right? But they understand what they're doing. They do really understand what they're doing. They're transforming your psychology. They're maturing and enriching your actual capacity. And so you're not going to get the results right away. And the results are subtle at first, but then later in life, or not so much later, sometimes. Oh, wow, this is beautiful. This might be a good example on page 459. I just happened to open it up here. These become part of your way of looking at the world. And just like different people see different worlds. I've been with Indians in the Amazon, and they didn't see a human when they looked at me. They saw something else. And when I looked at them, I didn't quite see, what I saw was something else too, because I was afraid, right? And so it's very difficult to explain. That's why we have this text, the sutra. Let me just read this little part here on page 459. What is the great enlightening beings? And by the way, I thought I'd explain some of these terms for people. They asked if I could explain some of the terms, but remember there's a glossary in the back of the book. So enlightening beings are bodhisattvas. They are enlightening beings. They are beings that are here to help us get enlightened, and they themselves are enlightening, or enlightened or enlightening. What is great enlightening beings' practice of indomitability? Here the great enlightening beings cultivate various forms of energy: foremost energy, great energy, excellent energy, outstanding energy, supreme energy, sublime energy, exalted energy, unsurpassed energy, unequaled energy, comprehensive energy. They become naturally free from the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion, naturally free from pride and conceit, naturally not hypocritical, naturally not stingy or jealous, naturally not deceitful, naturally conscientious. Ultimately, they do not make any effort that would afflict a single living being. They only make efforts to cut off all afflictions, to pull out the roots of all confusion, to get rid of the force of habit, to know the realms of living beings, to know where all beings die and are born, to know the afflictions of all sentient beings, to know the inclinations of all sentient beings, to know the perspectives of all sentient beings, to know the superiority and inferiority of faculties of all sentient beings, to know the mental activities of all sentient beings, to know all realms of phenomena, to know the basic nature of all Buddha qualities, to know the equal nature of all Buddha qualities, to know the equal nature of all time frames, to attain the light of knowledge of all Buddha teachings, to experience the knowledge of all Buddha teachings, to know the unique true character of all Buddha teachings, to know the infinity of all Buddha teachings, to attain far-reaching decisive knowledge of the techniques of all Buddha teachings, and attain the knowledge to analyze and expound the expressions and meanings of all Buddha teachings. So, it's more like a marinade than it is like a pill. And so you marinate your consciousness in this. It's not so much visualizing everything. This happened to be in the 10 practices, okay? And so what they're doing, see, like right here where they talk about the energy in the beginning, you get the notion that energy is evolved here. You need energy. And then when they talk about naturally free from the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion, naturally free from pride and conceit, naturally not hypocritical, naturally not stingy or jealous, naturally not deceitful. These things become part of you, right? And and somewhere in the back of your mind, so it's naturally this way, not contrived, not forced, not it just comes. There's a limit to what you can do about describing a meal without somebody tasting it, right? But to taste it, you have to eat it from beginning to end, right? To taste the whole meal. And so that's the kind of the bind I'm in here. You have to spend time with the sutra in order for it to do what it is designed to do, and it will do. Now, is it absolutely essential that everybody read the sutra? No. I mean, if you're more inclined towards something else at a particular time or phase of your life, it's an advanced sutra, right? And it's not just advanced, it's Mahayana, and it's the foundation of Zen and the foundation of Tibetan Buddhism as well, but it's for more advanced students. And I can't be everything for everyone. I mean, the Dalai Lama can, he's amazing, but I can't. And so this is more for people who are very serious and, like I said, average intelligence or above, who are very sincere in their desire to wake up. So I think that's an important caveat. And if you don't meet those criteria, that's fine. There's thousands of other channels to go to, right? But this is for waking up. All right, so now your question. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when I read the book, I get 2 modes of visualization. So like earlier, when I used to read stuff, I used to kind of force myself to visualize. But then after our discussion last time, where I need to I learned I need to let go and be more relaxed. Yeah. So now when I read it, this sense of visual comes in, but if I force it, then I get picture, but then it's not productive. So with that, now I'm getting the sense of the visual, but I'm not forcing it. So that's how I am reading it now, and it feels more relaxing than otherwise.
Excellent. If you don't get it, it will get you. Just get through it at first. And then we'll talk. But that's good. Excellent. So is there a question about it?
I think my question was pretty much on the same line, that I'm reading this chapter now, which doesn't seem like it's doing much, but I'm still reading it. And
which chapter are you on? Just out of curiosity.
So this is Flower Bank World.
Okay.
Page
yeah, that's a very visual one. Do you want to read a little bit of it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
All right, why not? Now, there's other texts as well. I mean, for young people who need energy, especially men, I recommend the Carlos Castaneda series, starting with the 2nd book and going through the 7th book. For a young man who's just starting out and who's of that type, right? Who that appeals to. For others, I'd prescribe, the Tao Te Ching to anybody, really. but it's a little bit difficult. And for others, I'd prescribe, elementary Buddhist practices. And for others, definitely the Mullah, also almost for everybody, the Mullah, Nasruddin, and the Sufis. This whole series by Idris Shah. And so there's, like I said, there's a million thousand, all rivers flow to the sea eventually. And so castles made of sand flow into the sea eventually. That's a Jimi Hendrix song, beautiful one. But for those who want to accelerate the process and want to get there before they die, or want to get there before they're too old and unable, then I recommend these if it appeals. Now let's go to Flower Bank World. What page?
Yeah, this is page 227.
227?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is definitely to stretch your mind. Why don't you read maybe a third of a page?
Yeah, I'll read the paragraph. Turning to the right of this diamond orb, adorned floor sea of fragrant water, is another sea of fragrant water called Lotus Blossom Indranet, with a world system called everywhere showing reflections of the 10 directions, resting on a lotus blossom, adorned with jewels, with all kinds of scents, composed of the sounds of the light of knowledge of all Buddhas. At the bottom of this world system is a world called Jewel Light of the Ocean of Living Beings, shaped like a treasury of pearls, resting on a sea of garlands of all jewels, covered with clouds of crystals of the luster of water, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in a Buddha field, uniformly pure. The Buddha there is called all-illumining moon of inconceivable virtue.
Beautiful. So notice here, turning to the right of this diamond, okay, is another sea of fragrant water called Lotus Blossoms Indranet, with a world system calling everywhere showing reflections of the 10 directions, resting on lotus blossoms, I told you. So they reiterate the Indra's net. They reiterate the lotus blossom is a symbol of purity, by the way, so people who may not know this. The reason the lotus is such a major figure in Buddhism, and probably also in Hinduism, is that it's a flower that sits on mud, but its flower is completely pristine. It's a symbol of purity on top of all this impurity, and it's a beautiful flower. So imagine if you had a flower of Indra's net, you would have these in all directions, and they're all reflecting, and so that reminds you of Indra's net, and it reminds you of the interdependent existence of everything that exists, right? So these things are kind of, they start saturate you. Now, we're not used to learning like this in the West. In the West, we learn, okay, first you learn arithmetic, then you learn multiplication, then you learn fractions, then you learn algebra, then you learn algebra 2, and then you do calculus. That's not how they teach. They teach in a much more sophisticated manner. The Sufis, the proto-Sufis that wrote this thing, the Buddhist canon, and the Sufis themselves. So we have to let go of our conditioning that education only occurs in one way, right? So that in itself is a teaching, right? Okay, so do you have questions about that or anything?
Yeah, so my question was along the same lines, that when I read that paragraph or that chapter, it feels like there's not much happening, but I'm just trusting the process, and then
it's like walking through a mist. Okay, there's two ways to get wet. You can jump in the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somebody's going to come and pull you out, probably, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can walk through a mist. You walk through a mist, you won't notice much at first. But after a mile or so, you'll be soaking wet, right? This is more like walking through a mist. Now, someday when there's awakening, boom, then that's sudden, can be. And then everything becomes much, much easier, and things then start working on an exponential, as David Hawkins would put it. There's a common observation that once you get past that first true awakening, once you make it past a particular point, there's a couple of these points. One is you can't regress. You just can't because you've seen too much, right? And then there's another point to where everything just starts to accelerate. Your understanding and it just comes to you, just like it just comes to you. But the thing is, you have to credit things like this Avatamsaka Sutra and other magnificent texts because they allow you to formulate and to hopefully to transmit or to understand some of the things that you're encountering. And then of course, then when you get beyond that too, then you're in the realm of reality itself, and you can get rid of all the books, unless you're teaching. Do you see what I'm saying? You would. There's no reason for have to be stuck with words or with images per se or anything like that. But that freedom is very, very precious. It's priceless. It's the most precious thing there is. And so, of course, there's the impulse to want to give that to people once you have some kind of handle on it yourself, right? So I hope I don't sound like a crazy old man, because I'm not crazy. Actually, I'm very, very sane. And this is the sanest thing to do with the human life that I've discovered, and I've been looking for a while. So whatever I look like, it's really not important. Anything else, sir, before we stop?
I mean, so there's like one personal situation which I thought many people are going through, but I don't know if we have time for that.
Well, let's see. Give it a try.
So it's basically like when people feel like that they are trapped in a relationship, like taking responsibilities. Like I will give an example. So like I have an aunt whose husband is a deadbeat, like drug addict, and no one is like they are taking care of them. But then when she gets really sick, then everyone around me is panicking. So because I have like, at least from Indian standards, I have like enough financial stuff, so I help them out, and it doesn't bother me. But then it bothers other people in my family, that how can you just like if you keep on doing this, it's not a sustainable solution. So I think for me, because I came to the US, I'm in a better situation, but I can understand a lot of people are stuck taking like being responsible for people that they don't need to, and I don't see a way out of this.
These are very, very difficult situations, right? They're complex. Every family's different. Every person's different. All the circumstances are different. And so it would not be wise for me to hazard a guess. I just don't know enough of the details or anything like that. But the more wisdom you can cultivate around this, the more wise your actions can be. And how does it go? Compassion without insight is dangerous, right? Because you do all kinds of things that make things worse. Possibly, I'm not saying you are or aren't in this situation, but but wisdom without compassion is useless, right? So again, you have to search your heart and do your best. Some of these situations feel impossible, but they're not, and they will pass one way or the other. But that's too complex a thing for me to offer anything on besides that. All right, sir? Okay, thank you for letting me, explicated things. All right?
Oh yeah, sure. It was also helpful for me.
Okay. Hasta luego. We'll see you.
Bye. Thank you.